Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Wonder Snatch. Today I have another guest on my channel and he's a very, very exciting guest. He's got a very good podcast, a local Singapore podcast talking about LGBT stuff, and he's Joel Tan. Welcome, Joel.
Hi. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for coming to my channel. In addition to being a playwright, I know Joel as a drag queen called Ashley50. So today we're going to talk a bit about that, drag and, other stuff. All right, Joel?
Yes, all the fun stuff.
Okay, so don't forget to give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and ring that bell for post notifications. And we're just going to block our brows and get right back. See you! Okay, we're back and our brows are gone. And so today the theme is going to be Christmas decorations, right? So yeah. I think you've got some red and green thing going on.
No, girl.
And I've got some blue and silver.
Yeah, it's all red.
All red, okay.
No, it's just all red.
Okay. I think the first time I met you was at a drag show, right? We performed together at Riot about 5 years ago. Do you remember that?
Correct. It was the year of Ashley50's birth, 2015. So Ashley50 means
yes.
It's a stupid joke, or it's a pun referring to like the patriotic exercise SG50. And then we met at our first Riot because that was my first ever drag performance.
That was your first one too? Yeah.
Was it yours?
The two baby queens. It was my first Riot, yes.
Oh yes. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
It was us, Becca and Norris.
Correct, and I think Mona Kiki as well.
Yeah, and Mona, yeah.
Yeah, like the regular cast.
Yeah, how many Riots have you done? I think I've done 2 or 3. 2.
I must have done something like 5 or 6 of them, I think.
I mean, I love your performances. I think they're so funny.
Thank you.
Thank you for dusting off Ashley50 for this for this collaboration.
Yeah. I feel like I have to manage everybody's expectations today because I haven't done her in more than a year.
No, don't worry.
Yeah, so anyway, nobody ever expected beauty from her, so I'm just gonna be a complete and utter mess. I'm gonna fall apart, but it's gonna be part of the show. I mean, that's what she brings you every
ball.
Yeah. Collapse and despair.
Okay, so mainly your day job as a playwright, right? You're mainly in the theatre. You work a lot with the local theatres, plays. I see you have a long list of plays.
Yeah.
How did you go from that to doing drag?
I've been writing plays since 2011, and then kind of turned it into my career, right? And I've never been too far away from the world of drag in that, like, drag is also
theatre, yes.
Yeah, a very specific kind of theatre, right? I mean, people don't always think of cabaret and nightlife as theatre, but it is. And so I'd always been surrounded by costumes and obnoxious, very loud people. So I was always very drawn to people like that. And then I met Eugene, Becca the Bus, who's now a good friend, through my connections in the theatre.
The theatre people?
We became friends and we got to talking, and then I got fascinated with it, especially when he first started doing Riot in Singapore, and I went to see a drag show and I was so impressed and moved by what I saw that I started to take an interest in it. And then he went one day, just threw me into the deep end and went, "Girl, why don't you just do Riot?" And then he helped me come up with like a shtick, a character. We workshopped it together very informally, and then next thing you know, I was on stage.
Thrown on stage. Wow,
yeah.
So Becca the Bus is your drag mom?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure she would not say that. I think she was kind of more like the sourdough starter. and this is the sourdough.
When you were in theatre, did you perform as well, or were you mainly behind the scenes?
I've done a bit of acting here and there. Mostly I've moved towards writing mostly. But I love performing, you see, and I have ever since I was a kid. Drag really unleashes this specific part of me that enjoys, it's a couple of things, right? Because I get to make my own performances from scratch. So I come up with the concept for it, and then I make the costumes for it, and then I choose the music, I do the shitty choreography, and then I perform it. So it feels like a very complete kind of theatre that I quite enjoy.
I think that's exactly how I feel about it too. Because I was a huge theatre kid when I was growing up, but unfortunately I didn't end up doing that as my full-time career. And I put that aside for a very long time. And only recently, I started doing drag for some friends. Right after that, Becca asked me to go to Riot. It really sparked this whole thing in me, where I said, oh my god, I can actually do this. I had almost given up, on my passions and everything, but this actually marries all my all my interests.
Yeah. So you were a theatre kid, like you acted in school and stuff like that. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, Becca the Bus and I were in drama club together in ACS 1 year apart.
Oh yeah, the stories of that time in AC are legion.
Yeah. And then he went off and became, a full-time drag queen. And then I was sitting here, oh my god, I wish I could do that, but...
Well, and now you do in such a...
Well, yeah, it might as well be full-time.
Yeah, but I seem to know this about you, that you're a theatre kid, because I feel like you have you're really big musical theatre nerd as well, aren't you?
Oh yes, I am huge musical theatre nerd. I think before I actually did drag, I used to be a regular at open mics in Singapore and even in New York City when I was doing graduate school there. And I think people knew me as this crazy musical theatre obsessive. And doing drag allows me to, expand my repertoire to both genders, to all genders.
So you can sing all the parts.
So how do you see drag fitting in with your theatre career? Do you intend to ever, bring it into the rest of your theatre stuff?
Yeah, that's something that's come up before. Like, I feel there's a lot of potential there because drag I do, right, is an extension of my interest as a critic of Singapore society. And her name is Ashley 50, and as I started doing more and more of her, I realized the shtick is that she's Singapore's most patriotic drag queen. She was born in 2015, right, which was our 50th year as an independent republic, and I mean, I don't know how many people actually remember how horrible that year was for various reasons. There was so much kind of greasy patriotism, almost nationalism in the air, and when the opportunity to kind of create a drag character emerged, it became a very natural thing to try and satirize through the drag. Yeah, so very consciously, I think a lot of the numbers I was doing turned into these very conceptual satirical pieces where I would lampoon a kind of patriotic conversation of the day. And I do see that as an extension of my theatre, because I think Eugene said it to me once, which is that in drag, I've got a lot more guns firing than when I just focus on my writing, for example, or other things. I feel like it's a way to achieve a kind of criticism I might not be able to in the theatre, because there's something so absurd about drag and the kind of space that it occupies. People aren't going to drag to necessarily, to see a play, but I give it to them.
Yeah, and you can sneak in messages, or when they're looking at the bizarre makeup or the outrageous costumes, it kind of softens them up to slip in some messages, Yeah.
And it's very production value is a little lower. Let's be real.
Yeah. You can do anything. You can do anything you want, and that's actually why I turned to YouTube. Because YouTube is so democratic, you can just do whatever you want. I can talk about whatever I want. I talk about science when I want. I can talk about dermatology when I want. and then I'll throw in a few pop culture things.
Yeah, because it's your channel and you can talk about whatever the hell you want. So it's a bit like that in drag, right? If I was feeling something particularly strongly that week and I had a show on that, I prepare a few days before because I'm such a horrible procrastinator. Whatever I'm feeling about the world, society that week ends up making it into the show. So there's a kind of quick turnaround, and that's can be a very exciting creative process as well.
Yeah. How do you plan your performances?
Sit down with... I try to look at something that's happening, right? Or something that's topical, or something that I'm feeling particularly irritated or amused by. And then I try and think of the most funny way into that this woman who is Singapore's most patriotic drag queen, I try and find a way in for her, and it's usually through idolatrous worship of national symbols. I like to use a lot of National Day songs. So I like to use a lot of 80s music because I imagine that she's basically my mom. So from that time period, and then try and combine that with something or other that's happening in the world that week.
But I mean, even then already, that's a lot of thought to put into your performance. You have your whole character, you have a backstory, you have,
Yeah.
That's very theatre of you, yeah.
I mean, I guess it helps that I'm a playwright, so these things are a bit second nature to me. But I still find drag very stressful. I mean, part of the reason why I don't do it as much is because it is actually a lot of work. I can get very stressed by it.
How did you learn your makeup?
Some people might say I didn't.
Do you have help from your theatre friends or anything like that?
No, nothing so special. It was really I mean, if you were there for my early shows, you would have seen how monstrous the thing was. My two closest sisters, Becca and Mona, offered me tips and tricks along the way, but mostly they were just amused at how like I would turn up at the show looking like a horse.
But it fits in with the theme of your performances, right? And the last time I saw you at Riot, you did the Samsui woman number.
Yes, that is true.
It was perfect. I thought you look like this mutated kimchi kind of look with a very big blown out eyes. You had this look of bemusement on the face. You were throwing out tissue paper or something.
Yeah, that was
tissue paper.
That was such a fun number. What was it? I went on stage. Oh, this is the height of the Crazy Rich Asians thing, right? So I went out as a samsui woman selling tissue paper. And dancing to the theme song of the Crazy Rich Asians trailer, because why not, right? Yeah, but like to get back to the makeup, I learned it mainly from YouTube lah. Like I guess so many new
YouTube. Yeah, YouTube's my drag mom too.
Yeah, I realized early on that I don't have a talent for fine detail when it comes to painting my face, so I just paint very big, which is why the eyes are so big. Also, I love Muppets. So I knew from an early stage that I wanted as far as possible to look like a human Muppet. If you paint big, no one is going to want to come close anyway, so... Yeah, and it's perfect for the stage, right? Yeah. I meant to be looked at 5 meters at least away. Yeah, so I don't want to scare you, but YouTube tends to pick up all the little details. It's fine. Which actually has helped me, I mean, if you looked at my videos from the beginning to now... Yeah. Watching myself with a fine-tooth comb, I've been able to improve very, very quickly. So I mean, that's one good thing about YouTube, I think. I can't imagine. I'm completely terrified about how I'm going to look today. But you know what? I feel like if people are here for the beauty, they are not. They've got the wrong priorities. So you mentioned just now that you spent a lot of time in London? Yeah, I moved there in 2017 to do my master's degree. And then I stayed on a year plus after my master's to live and work. In fact, I would still be there if it weren't for this stupid pandemic. You had a scholarship, right, from the National Arts Council? That's right, the National Arts Council Postgraduate Scholarship. This was a master's degree, right? This is a London thing. Yeah, so I went to study, I did a master's in dramatic writing at Central St. Martin's, which funnily enough has a drama school attached to it. Do you think Singapore is supportive for artists? What do you think about this scholarship? I think the scholarship's amazing and I'm very grateful for it. It's one of like the better government scholarships in that the bond is very centered. So like basically it's you do this scholarship, you have to come back and work in the arts for a set period of time. So you have to kind of contribute back to the scene. And so I feel like it's very geared at really helping practitioners go and train and meet other artists and work in a different context for a bit and then come back and share that experience. So I think it's an amazing scholarship. Since your question about whether or not Singapore is supportive of the arts, I think it is. Like sometimes you wonder about the way it's supportive and you wonder about the intentions of that support, but you can't deny that the support is there and that so many people would not have careers in the arts if it weren't for this support. I think it's the same with science and medicine, right? They do try to send people overseas to learn and bring back skills and bring back new things to Singapore. And I think that's really good. But yeah, I think Singapore as a very young country, we still need to be able to learn how to let people do what they want. Yeah. Right? I think a lot of the mindset of especially older Singaporeans that, I mean, there was this horrible survey that came out, I think, earlier during the pandemic that said artists were non-essential. I think you had something to say about that. Yeah, I mean... Can I be real? It's like, sorry, artists are unessential during a pandemic. Like the word essential and of the essence is very complicated, right? And I feel like people often forget that that article that survey was attached to was trying to advocate for the raising of wages of very lowly paid essential workers. For some reason, they also included this stupid infographic, which then put a lot of focus on the actual issue at hand, and then that was all people talked about. Yeah. And artists themselves did a spectacular job of pulling focus from low income other essential workers. Yeah, from essential workers. And like, the truth is that a lot of artists, many artists, not all artists obviously, live fairly luxurious lives, and like the structural conditions in Singapore, it is still very much the case that to make a career in the arts you need to come from some comfort, course, I don't deny that the arts are essential. No, I wouldn't be doing it. But it's like, we need to, it's like, when you think about things like work and labor and the value of work, I think that's when things get very complicated. And it's not as easy as saying, oh, this is essential, that's not essential. You know what I mean?
I think I'm probably a bit guilty of that. I probably have, I have not really been in the arts for most of my life. And then now coming in later in life, really trying to use this as a way to try to uplift other voices and try to, now that I'm more comfortable with YouTube, I'm trying to bring on more people to talk about their experiences, LGBT voices and stuff like that.
Yeah. Just to tidy up that thought a bit, right? Singapore, like, it's very hard to convince people that, what you do in the arts is a career. But God knows I still have to do that on a daily basis with my parents. Like, it's a bit hard to explain to people who have a very different kind of cultural paradigm that going out and writing plays is a living, right? And very often it's not a living because it's very hard to make a living doing this alone. So I get it when, the history of the arts in Singapore is a very difficult one. There's a lot of censorship, and then there's constantly having to prove to people that your work is of value. So it hurts when someone comes out and says, oh, we as a society don't think you're essential. But like, obviously, I think the context of that question and in the pandemic, people got a bit carried away with the big headline without really looking at what was going on. And anyway, I feel like artists maybe should relax a little bit about trying to prove our worth to a society. I think do the work and let the work speak, right?
Speak for yourself, yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is your amazing podcast. I've been addicted to your podcast called Tea for Two.
Tea for Two.
Yeah, I think I discovered it when you had 3 or 4 episodes out, and I love it. It's like everything I wanted in a podcast.
Aww.
How do you come about it?
How did we come up with the idea? So Tea for Two is me and my best friend Kishan, who is a science educator. I think it started out like because I was very bored and I wanted to kind of experiment with making something online. And someone suggested, hey Joe, you like to talk, right? Why don't you do a podcast? But I didn't want to do it by myself. So I asked my best friend if he'd be up to it. Because actually a while ago, he was thinking of setting up a YouTube channel or something to do popular science education. So he's very passionate about science education and finding...
Science education, yeah, me too actually.
Yeah, of course. And it's so important, right? And so he likes thinking of new ways to communicate scientific concepts in creative, fun ways, which is what he does in his classroom, but he wanted to create resources for that. So he told me a while ago that he'd actually bought like a whole camera and mic setup. So I remember, oh, you have this setup, right? Do you want to do a podcast with me? Because I can think of very few people in the world with whom I would be able to do something like that. And he's my best friend, and we've been very close friends for very long, and we have a natural kind of chemistry, so that made a lot of sense. So then I asked him, and he said, okay.
No, you can tell.
Yeah, I think it's a bit hard to fake this kind of chemistry one, right? We really do have it. Then we decided to do it, and then we figured out, okay, so maybe we can do different segments that play to our different interests and strengths, right? So that's how we came up with the structure. So we talk a little bit about pop culture, we talk a little bit about current affairs, we take the piss out of Singapore society, and we do some popular science education.
If you look at my podcast list, that's exactly every single thing I listen to. I started listening to podcasts a lot when I was in America. I listen to a lot of politics podcasts and everything. And I must admit that I know more about US politics than I do about local politics.
It's not hard, is it, to know more about American politics than Singapore politics?
It's presented in such a way that it's almost like entertainment.
Yeah.
It's like the media is sensationalized.
Yeah, it's the best TV show on earth.
Whereas Singapore, I guess things... lately it's been quite interesting. And the way that you guys present stuff on your podcast. And also I've been starting to listen to a lot of local Singapore podcasts as well. Like, I listen to Longkang Kitties sometimes. Have you heard of them?
The two sabos who just... what do you call again?
No, Longkang Kitties are 3 guys and 1 girl. I discovered them because Becca actually was a guest on their podcast.
No, I have not in fact listened to them. I will right after this because today is my podcast listening day.
So. They get quite political, but a little bit controversial.
Right.
They do say quite a lot of transphobic and homophobic stuff sometimes.
What? That's not okay. As in what context would they?
Yeah, it's not okay, but you know,
like in what context would they possibly need to bring up this kind or to say transphobic and homophobic?
Well, in the last episode, they used the F word.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The F word, faggot.
The one that only we.
Yeah, and none of them are
the
gay.
one that only we can use.
They're irreverent, I would say, and I think I still listen to them because I want to get other perspectives.
Yeah, you can be
I don't want to keep
without
just
being an asshole as well, you know.
Yeah.
So Longgang kiddies, if you're listening, I don't know if this will make it into the edit. Very bad. Cannot.
Also, SG Boys, I discovered them because you guys talked about them recently.
Yeah, they're so cute. The three of them.
Yeah.
And you know they've managed to get on like some really interesting people, like Mel C.
Melanie C.
Yes.
It's like, what is that? What kind of get is that?
I mean, that was incredible.
Already having you on my channel, I'm like a bit starstruck already because I listen to you every week.
Don't need lah. Starstruck, please lah.
I really like the way you guys bring in all these science education stuff, and I don't know, what kind of feedback do you get for your science education?
That's some of our most popular segments because people really just like to learn new things, I think. Okay. Here we go with the scary part.
What are you doing?
I'm just going to paint a massive
eyeliner.
Red eye. Because, you know, I have no imagination. I love that you call it eyeliner. This is really just like eye paint.
Do you have any plays coming on?
I mean, my play Cafe was on this week.
It was a Zoom play?
No. It was actually in the theatre, believe it or not. So Warrise is one of the theatres that has started opening performances because they had their own space. So they started opening up again for socially distanced shows. So there was a production of my play Cafe, which I first wrote in 2016.
What are the themes of your plays usually? What do you usually like to write about? You mentioned on one of your podcast episodes that you wrote a play all about your loneliness, about your ennui.
Oh, mon ennui, oui. It changes from play to play. It really depends on what I'm feeling at the moment. So like, right now I'm in a very political headspace. So I've been writing a lot of plays about, well, I guess politics. Because I've been working in the UK mostly, I've been very interested in colonial history because, you know, that's one of our primary relationships with the UK, one that we sometimes forget or have a very weird relationship with and that they've completely forgotten.
Did you watch Singapore Grip, the Singapore Grip?
Oh God, so I've been avoiding it because I know it would just make me so upset because white British people can get away telling any story about empire they want, right? But here I am writing plays in the UK trying to get critical post-colonial perspective out there and nobody wants to put up my plays. And then they get to do this.
Yeah, I know. I watched 1.5 episodes and I had to turn it off. It's bad.
It's bad.
It's like it's trying to capitalize on the Crazy Rich Asians thing by showing like this colonial thing, but
fascination with Singapore, and at the same time this weird nostalgia for empire, even though they claim that they take a critical stance on it. I'm just like, you probably don't.
I mean, contrast that with something like The Crown. I know you spoke about that in your last episode also, The Crown, how it's not something we're supposed to like.
Yeah, we do. I've been reading a lot of articles about The Crown lately about how the royals are very unhappy with it apparently because it's getting so close to, you know, where they are now, and it's digging up a lot of dirt on the Charles and Diana thing that, you know, they thought they swept under the carpet for about 10 years now, and now like a whole generation of people, young people, are coming to awareness of what happened, and like I think it's not a good time for them.
Charles, Camilla, they all hated The Crown, but the Queen herself actually likes it very much.
Yeah, I think maybe it's the same way your mother will like things that you hate. Quite funny, what? No, man?
She comes out smelling like roses.
Yeah, she comes out smelling like roses and frankincense and myrrh. And she gets Olivia Colman to play her, excuse me.
Or Claire Foy,
oh,
both of them amazing.
That. And then like, do we know who the third one's going to be? Imelda
Staunton, yes.
Yeah. Is she not also a theatre actor and a musical theatre?
Yes, she is.
Right.
And she recently had a really amazing run as Gypsy. She did a very good Gypsy on West End a few years ago.
Yeah, I think I might have seen her in another show on the West End. I think she might have been Follies.
Follies, yes, Follies also. I didn't catch that one, but I read about that.
I saw that. It was fantastic. Really good production. I love Sondheim.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Sondheim is one of my ultimate.
It's like, it's not musical theatre in the same way a lot of musical theatre is. It's so intelligent because like I've worked on musicals before and it's as a lyricist, and when you're not composing, right, it's a bit harder to get get that kind of synergy. Unless you're working with a composer.
A lot of the musical theatre duos that, you know, there's a composer and a lyricist, they actually tend to work together so long. It's almost like, you know, you and Kishan, right?
Yeah.
You need to have this chemistry that is undeniable, that you know.
Yeah, you need a kind of creative shorthand, I think.
Are you going to be dusting off Ashley 50 again?
It's a hard one. I feel like part of me feels like I've given her up a bit. I've been living in the UK, and when I first went there, I was thinking of ways to do drag, right? Because actually, one of my flatmates at the time runs this very popular cabaret called the Cocoa Butter Club, which is like a late night cabaret that centers performance of colour. And so she was like, when she found out I did drag back in Singapore, she was like, Joel, you absolutely have to do something. And then like I got so freaked out because I was like, how do I translate this like greasy patriotic woman to a British context, right? Like I kind of like put her on the back pedal for a bit because I just couldn't find a way to contextualize her there, and then life got ahead of me, and then like, I just haven't done her very much.
So did you end up performing in the UK in drag?
I just yeah, I've actually put drag itself on a back burner for a while. I think I got a bit not jaded, because like what's there to be jaded about, but like a bit busy for it, I think.
I actually didn't dare to do drag at all when I was in America.
The barriers to entry feel quite high, and even in London, right, where like the drag is a bit more cha-cha, you know, it's hairier, it's a bit messier, it doesn't care so much about, you know, beauty and grace and all that, but
especially the east side, right?
Yeah, and you know, and I was hanging out in that part of town a lot, but I guess, you know what the reality is, I just felt I didn't need to do drag, which is why I didn't do it. Whereas in Singapore, I feel like every time I come back, I feel this pull to put this woman on stage again, because I think she has something to say here, and I don't know necessarily that I have something to say via drag in the UK.
Yeah, hopefully maybe this video, after you've dusted off all your makeup, Ashley 50 will grace us again pretty soon.
Yeah, she's gracing you now.
On stage.
Okay lah, quite big lah, the ice cream lah. I've been very curious about like you since, you know, we first met at Riot, and we've bumped into each other a couple of times since, haven't we, in New York when I was there briefly.
Oh yeah, when were you in New York?
In 2015, in fact the year of Ashley 50's birth, for this thing called Singapore Inside Out.
Oh yes. Did I see you there? I was there.
You was there, but I think we tried to meet, but then like it was passing ships. So
okay.
Sadly, you were living in New York for a good long time, right? For your
about almost 5 years.
Ah, that's nice. New York's an amazing city. You must miss it so much.
Mainly because it's the closest to Broadway.
Did you see a lot of theatre on Broadway?
Oh my god, yeah. That's something I really miss when I was there. A day, let's say my experiment failed and I felt down, I could just go and watch 2 shows. I'll watch a matinee and a night show. I just spend the whole day in Times Square.
That's amazing.
I really miss that.
Do you watch much theatre in Singapore then? I mean, it's pointless comparing Broadway and Singapore theatre, but you know.
I'm a bit more of a musical person, so in Singapore,
not much.
No offense, but I don't tend to watch a lot of plays.
No, that's fine.
I really spend all my money on musicals.
Yeah. No, that's.
In Singapore, definitely. I mean, if there's a musical, I'll definitely watch it. So I watch all of them. Anything that's put up, I will try to watch.
Right. What's the last musical you saw here before all this like happened?
I think it must have been like Peter Pan.
Oh, I worked on the lyrics for that. The pantomime.
Yes, I remember now. Yeah, it was fun. It was so fun, I thought.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of drag in it too.
Yeah, panto always has a lot of drag. It's part of the tradition.
Yeah, so I've drawn on snowflakes in my eyes and then giving myself white freckles as well.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by your commitment.
What are you going for?
I'm going for Cancer. Christmas Cancer. This Cancer of the Christmas.
I probably should have asked you this at the beginning. How do you identify?
Gender-wise?
We're supposed to be normalizing these questions, right? So I tend to forget to ask these questions, but I think it's something very important that we should get people to think about.
I use he, him pronouns, and I identify as a cis man, although I don't really like the term man to describe myself, because I think it's such a historically loaded term that I want very little to do with. I think my sexual orientation is, I think I'm queer. Like I used to think I was gay, but I don't think that's the case anymore. It's about having a fluid and radical attitude to all kinds of received notions, and I think like I've lately become a bit wary of mainstream gay culture, gay male culture.
That reminds me of the episode you did for T for Two. You talked about, you know, gay male culture.
Gay male body culture.
Yeah, gay male body culture.
I've become a bit of a broken record on that topic, I think, because I had a lot of struggles with my body over the years. When I first like started going out as a young gay boy, I had a lot of difficulty trying to understand how my body made sense in a community that, as we know, can be kind of very obsessive with a certain kind of physique. So like I was very angry about it in my early days, and I think I found a certain kind of like resignation and distance from it in my adulthood. But it still hurts, and it's still something that I think about a lot because it's something that does concern me. You know, the pursuit of that kind of body beautiful.
Yeah, I must admit that I probably was trapped in that for a very long time myself. So in my 20s, that was all I pursued, you know, and it really takes over your entire life. It's like you're never good enough, you're never muscly enough, you're never this enough. And you know, letting go of all that really changed my worldview because, you know, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I would be obsessed with getting a tan. I would not step out of the house if I wasn't tanned or toned or lean or anything like that. And it was really, it's really quite toxic the way I think I approached everything at the time.
Was this in Singapore?
Both in Singapore and in the UK. So in the UK, I went out quite a lot also, and it really affected me quite negatively. And I think it's only after I found drag when I realized that it's like, you know, you don't have to worry about all of that. You can be anything you want. You can present any way you want. And if people like it, that's fine. If they don't, that's their problem and they have their own issues, right?
It's nothing to do with you. It wasn't until I started doing drag that I found a new relationship with fat. You know, I had a lot of problems with my own fatness and feeling really ugly in my body. And like drag actually helped me to unlock a lot of that because you know, like suddenly this fat was something you could harness. It gave me shape. It was beautiful. And it helped me create something more than myself. It helped me reevaluate gender in my own life a little bit. I let a lot more feminine clothing into my life. Even though I haven't been doing drag for, you know, in a while, like a lot of the lessons I learned from it, I still hold quite dear.
That resonates totally with me as well because I think it's after I started doing drag and started reading a lot more about gender and sexuality, it really opens your view about all these different things and intersectionality as well. You know, Sasha Velour, the winner of season 9, she has this zine which I bought, and she has this amazing essays in there about gender and everything. It really, really helps you increase your empathy and increase your view on societal constructs and everything. I mean, constructs sounds such an academic loaded word, but you know, it is really everything that we experience is because we've been told something.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sadly, gay men are not immune from this. So many gay men grow up in the closet, grow up being bullied and all that. If you can find yourself in a situation where you're suddenly the center of adoration, why wouldn't you want to? I think it's just sometimes gay men can become quite violent and oppressive in their own ways. And like I think the lessons of drag and queer culture are very important for gay men as well. You know, many of whom seem to have forgotten the experience of the closet romance. Yes.
I think that's a very important thing to note because in America, I think there's been quite a lot of gay Republicans who voted for Trump. So people who have benefited from activism and have moved up into acceptance have actually forgotten everyone left behind. And that's why I try to talk a lot about transgender people and the trans experience on my channel. Even though I'm not trans myself, I think a lot of people who are trans actually helped pioneer a lot of what we call drag today because they were experimenting with gender and they were trying to express themselves in a way that they felt inside, and that's what we're doing with drag. We cannot leave them behind because, you know, the LGBT people think that it's completely separate, but it's not. It's really all part of the same family.
Yeah, I mean, it's this thing, right, where just because you're gay doesn't mean you can be reliably expected to have the right politics when it comes to certain things. Even in Singapore, I know a lot of like very politically conservative gay people because just because you're gay doesn't mean you don't want comfort, you don't want a certain kind of stability, doesn't mean you, in fact, you probably want these things more.
No, I totally agree, and I think that's why we always have to remember to look back, and wherever we are in life, we need to be able to help those along the way.
Politics around trans people and the rights of trans people is kind of one of the great conversations and fights of the times. And like it seems like every other week you have some new transphobic controversy that's playing out, in the world. Either it's something that's happening in pop culture, or something that's happening on the internet, or literally, policy that's being enacted that is working against the rights and well-being and lives of trans people. And it's just like, where are the gay men in the fight for this?
They definitely have been the latest punching bag because in America especially, because homosexuality and gay marriage is already been written into the law. They need to find someone else to attack.
Yeah, and it's that thing of how like having one gay marriage for themselves, a lot of a certain kind of activism seems quite content to put the weapons down. In a way, you've kind of attained the fantasy of a certain kind of gay politics, right? Which is to fully assimilate, to have the same things as straight people do. And then
so gay marriage does seem to be some sort of a Trojan horse, you think? That it let you subscribe to heteronormative societal expectations?
I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Trojan horse is an interesting expression, right? There's some kind of gay who wants the same things that everybody else wants. Wealth, a good job, stability, and when the only factor of your difference is the person you have sex with and that you hope to fall in love with, the gender of that person, once you resolve that and you win access to all the things that the straight people have, that's it. Because gay people can present themselves as a very respectable community. We're not too different than you. We want the same things. We have the same aspirations. We are well behaved. We're rich. Where we go, we gentrify neighborhoods. I'm always very wary of this kind of politics that's very centered on marriage as an institution as the only fight. The fight seems to end once you achieve that. And then what happens to working class queers?
Or even like minority, even or even people of color and
queers of color, who don't have the same access to all these other kinds of things, who actually shelter white gay men. And I'm wary of like translating these politics to Singapore because obviously it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Pink Thought, for example, has been such a great movement, but like it's not itself immune from criticism. Some people criticize it for presenting too friendly a face, too cuddly a face, too family-centric a face. And lately, I think a lot of people associated with Pink Thought have not made their desire for marriage equality secret. So it's very clear, like, it's part of that same genre of activism, I think. And like, I think it's a valid criticism that it's like, oh, why does gay activism look this way in Singapore? Why is it so cuddly and accessible? But we know why.
Yeah, it's engineered that way because of acceptance,
Yeah, over time I've come around to this because I used to, when I was younger, I was very like, we should be angry, we should act up and be radical and and all that. But I feel like in Singapore, because things are so distorted by law and the way power and government operates here, we have to take our cues very differently, and we've got to do things in a much more strategic and measured way. Yeah, our state of affairs is not normal,
I think that's bringing this back to drag, but this is exactly what RuPaul has been doing with Drag Race. I mean, the way that she designed Drag Race and bringing on certain types of contestants, she's trying to normalize this thing in, middle America. So obviously, the first few winners were the pageant, the naturally beautiful winners, and then she started to bring in more quirky characters. And even for transgender people, they have brought on transgender people, and RuPaul has unfortunately said some unfortunate things about trans people. But she is starting to, I think, they are starting to bring on more diverse cast members. I think the next season there's going to be a trans man contestant. So that's going to be assigned female at birth, but transitioned to male and then became a drag queen. So, they are trying to push the envelope, but I think in their own way. So I think the criticisms for being too cuddly and being too accepting, you need to, I think, step back and try to see the big picture.
Even with RuPaul's Drag Race, the whole question about, like, this is this big queer platform, but like trans people are practically invisible on it, or like, even the race politics on that show are a bit iffy sometimes, right? It's doing one thing to people who aren't in the queer community, but it's distorting a lot of things for people who are queer, right? And so I feel like there's always this kind of tension between that outward-facing and inward-facing story we tell. And I think the success of that really depends on the success of community organizing, and I think in Singapore that's a bit tricky because like the community is hard to organize, right? I'm not sure we do organize as a community very often or at all. And when we do, it's like, it feels quite sporadic sometimes.
Yeah. What do you think about activism in Singapore? Do you think without Pink Dot, most people do have the will to be an activist?
I think that activism in Singapore in general is like, I really, really, really admire anybody who steps up to do that kind of work in any capacity. The conditions under which we live are not normal. They are very distorted. The inability to speak freely, to protest, to register dissent, without fear of reprobation, that's not a normal state of affairs. And I think as a result, activism has taken on an extra layer of danger in this country. I think most people are not incentivized to be activists in this country. People are not incentivized to speak up,
Yeah, I think for a very long time I did think that in Singapore we have been given certain levels of comfort such that we are quite apathetic, most of us, and I think that was probably my case for a very long time. You didn't want to stick your neck out because you were, relatively taken care of. But you have gone viral a couple of times. You very famously confronted an MP about the recent Party Leani case.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I want to clarify that I do not think of myself as an activist. Like, I think that the word is very specific, and the kind of work that an activist does, I don't do that kind of work, right? I'm a writer, and I write about my experiences, and I write about the things that I believe in and that I think, that may be useful to some people, but I don't think of it as activism. Although in this country, perhaps it is thought of as a form of activism because the threshold is so low. I can't control how any of the things I do go out and are received, right? But I think like I don't set out with the intention to be an activist when I do these things. When I write about local affairs and I write about politics, and when I write about the encounter that I had with Teo Chee Hian, I didn't think of it as activism necessarily, but I did kind of think of it as a very specific role of the writer in this country to call attention to injustice and to speak truth to power, which I think is the role of writers everywhere, really. But I think in this country, like I was saying, because the threshold for free speech and expression is so low, these acts feel like they are radical. What I think of as more activisty in my life is writing letters to my MP, and I become that bitch, right? Where every time something happens, like I do now more consciously say, no, I want to write in to my MP about this issue, right? Because I feel like if we don't normalize that relationship with our leaders, it's never going to happen, because we just accept that they do what they want. They talk about it in some high office, in some parliament somewhere far away where we don't go there. Matters are decided there, and we have no stake to play in that. But that's patently untrue. We do have channels with which to communicate with them, even without them having to come to our house. You know what I mean? You can send them an email. Do it. Start a petition every once in a while.
Or maybe you run for NMP. Do you think you want to do that at some point?
No, I have no interest in politics whatsoever. I really do not feel I have the temperament for it. You're like, do you want this to represent you in Parliament? No.
I don't mind. Something
I
like
know.
this to represent in Parliament. It's quite nice.
Yeah,
Okay, are you almost done?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so that was very heavy stuff to end off the to end off this video. But I think we're just going to throw on some finishing touches and we'll be back with the finished look. Okay, Joel?
Okay.
And we're going to see Ashley 50 soon.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you. Okay, let's see you in a bit. All right, and we're back, and these are finished looks, all decorated out in Christmas ornaments.
Merry Christmas!
Yay, it's Christmas! And that's a very famous samsui woman outfit,
hat.
all decked out for Christmas.
Yeah, it's my samsui woman hat, so I'm a Singapore Christmas ornament.
Yeah, I'm inspired by the Christmas light up this year. So it's all blue and silver and sponsored by Hitachi.
So beautiful. Hitachi, love some corporate sponsorship.
Thank you, Ashley50, for coming on my channel.
Anytime.
Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Joltan, JOLTAHN, and that's my handle on Twitter as well. And you can listen to me and my best friend Kishan on our best friend podcast, T for Two, which goes out every Sunday.
T for Two, yes, I'm excited. When is it's going to drop today, right? I can't wait.
As we recorded this, so I can't wait to go and post it.
Oh, okay, then I'm definitely listening to it later. Oh, my earrings are a little bit uneven levels. Never mind.
Okay.
I'll just tilt my head
It's
this way.
One ball has descended, the other hasn't quite.
Yeah, one is lower than the other. I think that's biologically feasible.
Correct.
I just tilt my head like this way, then it looks normal. Okay, well, thanks for joining us. And if you liked that video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and ring that bell for post notifications. All right, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Say bye,
Christmas.
Joel.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you again. Check out my other interviews. I interviewed Arya Dunn here and Farrah Shamrock over here. Bye. Merry Christmas.